This show is a part of the podcast network of the Walled Garden Philosophical Society, an international community of philosophers and seekers dedicated to the pursuit of truth, wisdom, virtue, and the divine, wherever they may be found. To find out more, go to thewalledgarden.com. Hello and welcome to another episode of Soul Searching with Seneca. Today we're going to be diving into the very end of letter number 22 from verse 13 onwards, and this is where Seneca gives us his advice from Epicurus for the letter. So you know how I like to do things. We're going to dive in, we're going to read the text, and then we're going to see what we can take away from it. So he says, quote, "I was just putting the seal upon this letter, but it must be broken again, in order that it may go to you with its customary contribution, bearing with it some noble word. And lo, there is one that occurs to my mind. I do not know whether its truth or its nobility of utterance is the greater. Spoken by whom, you ask? By Epicurus, for I am still appropriating another man's belongings. The words are, everyone goes out of life just as if he had but lately entered it. Take anyone off his guard, young, old, or middle-aged. You will find that all are equally afraid of death and equally ignorant of life. No one has anything finished, because we have kept putting off into the future all our undertakings. No thought in the quotation given above pleases me more than that it taunts old men with being infants. No one, he says, leaves this world in a different manner from the one who has just been born. That is not true, for we are worse when we die than when we are born, but it is our fault, and not that of nature. Nature should scold us, saying, what does this mean? I brought you into the world without desires or fears, free from superstition, treachery, and the other curses. Go forth as you were when you entered. A man has caught the message of wisdom if he can die as free from care as he was at birth. But as it is, we are all aflutter at the approach of the dreaded end. Our courage fails us, our cheeks blanch, our tears fall, though they are unavailing. But what is baser than to fret at the very threshold of peace? The reason, however, is that we are stripped of all our goods, we have jettisoned our cargo of life, and are in distress, for no part of it has been packed in the hold. It has all been heaved overboard and has drifted away. Men do not care how nobly they live, but only how long, although it is within the reach of every man to live nobly, but within no man's power to live long. Farewell." End quote. So these are some really powerful lines that Seneca is sharing here, and I want to break it down what I see in this. So obviously, firstly, Seneca kind of gets this quote from Epicurus, and Epicurus is suggesting that we go out of life in the same way that we came into life. A good way to demonstrate this, I think, is through a bit from Jerry Seinfeld. You know, he had this funny bit where he talked about how the first and last birthday of your life are pretty much the same thing in terms of the way that they appear, right? It's like you don't really know any of the people who are there, you're confused, they have to feed you, you can't really blow out the candles, it's just a great way of pointing out how like there's this kind of ascension into kind of freedom in our middle lives, and then a slow decline down to immobility and confusion towards the end of our lives. But Seneca comes along here and he points out, actually we don't go out the same as how we came into life. We actually go out of life worse than when we came into life. And on top of that, Seneca says, it's all your fault. And it's not the fault of nature, right? He makes this great point here where he's kind of speaking on behalf of nature, who is saying, I brought you into this world without desires or fears and free from superstition, treachery, and the other curses. And we kind of pick these things up along our way as we go through life. We pick up these superstitions, or we pick up these vices that are eating away at our soul. We pick up all of these desires that keep us enslaved, right? And I don't think that we need to be too hard on ourselves here because, of course, we are not blank slates. We do not just come into this world and then end up picking up all of these bad habits and things like that. I mean, we know that we carry with us the ancient memory of our ancestors who have come before us and of all of their qualities and of all of their vices. But I think that what Seneca is ultimately trying to show us here is that, there's something almost perfect about the way that we come into this world, and then over our lives we allow ourselves to fall down from that perfection into all of these vices, and we allow ourselves to be enslaved by these desires and these superstitions and these curses is what he says that nature calls them. And I think that there's something about this idea that resonates a lot with me, because we all know that there is more that we could be in life. We all know that there are better aims that we could be moving towards in life. We all know that we have potential that has been locked away and not sought out in our lives. We all know that there are vices that are constantly eating away at our soul and eating away at what could be something truly beautiful if we were able to live a life of virtue and wisdom. And I'm reminded of a quote from Jim Rohn that really stood out to me a while ago. He said, "When death finds you, let it find you climbing up a new hill, not sliding down an old one." I think that what he was trying to get at is at the end of your life, you're going to look back at your life and you're going to think, did I challenge myself to the end? Did I leave any potential undiscovered? Did I not do anything that I knew would have been good to do or meaningful to do? So many people say that at the end of your life, it's not the things that you did that you think about, it's the things that you didn't do, right? It's the regrets that you have. What could I have done if I had known better? And I mean, the question is always, right now in your life, do you know better? Do you really know better? And are you willing to act on that better advice? Because this advice from Jim Rohn is similar to what Seneca is saying here. It's like, at the end of your life, you don't want to find yourself sliding down these old hills of vice and mental torment and superstition, like he says, or all of this desire and all these things. It's like we want to find ourselves at the end of our life calm and satisfied with the truly meaningful life that we have lived. Not trying to get over the fact that, that we didn't give it everything that we could have. And Seneca actually gives us his advice for what it would look like for somebody to have truly embodied wisdom in their life at the final point when they're about to die. And he says, "A man has caught the message of wisdom if he can die as free from care as he was at birth," right? So this is bringing this idea full circle. He starts off by giving us Epicurus's, I hope I didn't say Epictetus before, Epicurus's quote about how we leave life as we came in. And then he says, no, that's not the case. We actually go out worse, and it's our fault. But a man has truly caught the message of wisdom if at the end of his life he can go out peacefully, right? If he can have a certain calm about him. And this really speaks to the reason why we in the Stoic circle so often quote this memento mori, remember death, right? To the Stoics, death was so incredibly important as something to meditate on and to think about what it means that we die at the end of our lives and how we can deal with that tragedy with a certain amount of calm and equanimity. And do we even think of it as a tragedy? Is it a tragedy or is it a blessing? Is it something that we need to fear, or is it something that really should just be welcomed as another stage in our cosmological life that we're all living here for eternity? So anyway, before we go down that rabbit hole, I want to finish by just reminding you of one quote towards the very end of this letter, which I think is beautiful. Seneca has this habit in his writing style sometimes, I've noticed, where he will point out kind of a really irrational view that it seems that humanity has in general, and he'll point out that it's actually the opposite, right? Like he says that you act like mortals in everything that you fear and immortals in everything that you desire. And that quote is a similar style to what he says now. He says the following: "Men do not care how nobly they live, but only how long. Although it is within the reach of every man to live nobly, but within no man's power to live long." Now, I just love this quote. This is such a Seneca quote, right? Because this is such an important part of his whole philosophy of life, is that, we often are so afraid of death that it gets in the way of us living life, right? And he also talks about how we need to remember that it's not how long your life is that matters. It's actually how good it was, how meaningful it was, and how good you were. And this is something to really think about. It's like, how much time are you going to spend worrying about extending your life when the thing that actually makes life meaningful is right within your grasp? And that's a very important thing that Seneca tries to get across in a lot of his writings, and it's something that we all need to think about. Living nobly, that's within your grasp right now. We talk about the dichotomy of control, that's within your power, right? Extending your life, look, you can do exercise, great. You can eat good foods, great. Okay, you can probably do a few more things like sleep properly. It doesn't hurt to have good relationships in your life to keep those stresses down. It's like there are things that you can do that will extend your life, right? And all of these things that I've just said probably fit into living nobly as well, right? But the important thing to remember is that living long is not the aim. Living nobly is the aim. Living well, living a meaningful life, living a life of wisdom, living a life full of rich experience. That's what we're after. And I just think that this is the perfect way for Seneca to end this letter, number 22, on the futility of halfway measures. If you're going to go after wisdom, you can't be afraid of death. You can't be afraid of the realities of life. You need to be contented with those things that matter and with those things that are in your control. And if you can do this, then perhaps at the end of your life you will be peaceful, and perhaps you'll even leave your life the same or better than how you came into it. So there's some thoughts for you on the final few verses of this letter. In the next episode, we're going to be diving into letter number 23 on the true joy which comes from philosophy, which, it's one of those letters that I'm pretty sure I've highlighted the entire thing. So it's going to take us a little while to get through, but it's wonderful nonetheless. So I hope you've enjoyed this episode. I'll talk to you next time.